mean, how do you handle disagreements? I mean, you get into it with somebody, you got to walk away and then come back, or do you try and bury the hatchet right there?
It depends on the intensity of the disagreement.
Yeah.
It depends on if it's something that is emergent that needs to be dealt with in that moment. There's a lot of factors. For me, and this is very recent, this is a recent development in maturity and the way that I handle things is a lot of times I'm passive even if I feel like I'm completely right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lately anyway. Before I would have argued you to the ground, like, nah, you wrong, you wrong. But now I feel like it's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I'll let things go, and then maybe it'll get readdressed at some point, but maybe not. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know. Arguing is it's one thing to disagree, but it's a completely different thing altogether to get like up in arms and be yelling and hollering and getting angry and all that kind of. No, thank you. I stop it long before it gets there nowadays because I just don't want to. I don't want to. I'm a calm person these days, and that's how I like to stay.
Yeah, conflict for me has always been like I look past it immediately. So like if I have a disagreement with somebody, I don't really like. I'm like, okay, if you're gonna argue me with this and you really want to be right. I'm like, you must really need this. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, arguing is one of those things I just simply don't do. Now, if it's something that you're passionate about, I can see putting a little bit more into it. But for me, I'm just slow to react. And I always have been. Like so. And then as you get older, it's just like, I don't care about nothing.
Exactly.
I've had people walk up in my face with their hands up, and I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do for you.
Right.
Like, you stay calm, people automatically see that you're in control. And that's what it looks like. It's like, even if you're scared, if you stay very calm, people always look at you as in control. Even when I was in school and things like that, conflict comes your way, it's like, man, I'm just not even going to be bothered with this.
Yeah.
And it's nothing, and that it immediately diffuses it. You know? So,
I think it speaks to a lot of managing your priorities. You know what I mean? Certain things are not worth the time and energy. Most things, almost nothing, is worth getting bent out of shape about. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I just kind of am in a place where I just refuse to do so.
That's good, man.
Especially with that story you shared with us over the weekend. You know what I mean? That's always something to think about, bro. It's like, looking at a lot about just, you have to think through the consequences of, if you feel yourself getting angry, you have to immediately go there, like what's going to be the consequences for what's going through my mind right now. You know what I mean?
You have to diffuse quickly, bro.
And it's just for that reason, it's some things that just are not worth getting upset about, especially if you have little control over your anger once you get there.
Yes.
Right. You have to guard your responses, guard your own emotions and involvement in a situation, like you said.
Yes. And I've even learned that you almost have to really be mindful of what you feed yourself coming up to certain things. You know, because I work with people that, read novels about, serial killers and things like that. And then always in the back of their mind, it's like either something about to happen to somebody or they got to react in a certain way that's too much, and what you feed yourself. Because if you think about like NWA hip hop, you know what I'm saying? You feed yourself that, then you walk around with this particular mindset, and you're always kind of on edge.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's, I think, that's what's imperative when it comes to conflict resolution. What am I feeding myself to make me want to react this way?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
Like, what keeps me on edge and so wound up that if somebody approaches me just slight, I'm ready to just haul off and fire on them. I personally am not a fighter. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a person that's like, I'm going to talk this thing through and reach a very logical resolution very fast. Yeah. And that's how I diffuse it, because I'm just not the person. Because for me, I think anger, man, is too hard to come back down.
Yeah.
Your heart's pounding, you sweating, you can't see straight.
Yep.
And I don't like that feeling. Right. Some people, they love it. Yeah. They like that. But for me, health-wise, I've never liked that, even as a young man. So I can diffuse things really, really fast. And I think really fast on seeing past it. Okay, if I react this way, what's going to happen? You know what I'm saying? If I say this to them, how are they going to come at me? So I don't want nobody just coming at me with a knife, because of something I said. Because we all have a potential to be sharp with our tongues at times. And so for me, conflict resolution is of the utmost importance in any situation, and plus it helps you not carry it for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
You be feeling off for like a week or two.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I didn't.
Don't let it be somebody that you have to see every day or something like that.
You got to be around.
Yeah.
So how you guys deal with it? Like conflict?
Man, I deal with it every day, like at my job during the automotive. Once again, in the automotive industry, you have to deal with conflict a lot of times, especially when you're not meeting numbers and different things like that, right? Yeah. So you have to constantly, I think that's a good subject. Conflict resolution is something that we should, I say, exercise more thinking about. You see what I'm saying? And I think if we approach things and have that somewhere in the forefront of our mind, I think a lot of things will be diffused immediately.
Yes.
The issue that I find with conflict, some people live for that.
They do, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
It makes them feel alive.
Yeah, man.
You know, that person doesn't, it doesn't make me feel alive. It makes me feel close to not knowing what could be on the other side of a situation.
Yes, man, that's so true because like you said, if a person's desire is to see how they can push your button. It's like, what type of individual is that? You know what I'm saying? Like me, for me personally, I'm a very passive person, probably to a hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't speak up a lot of times like when I should. That's because I choose peace over anything else. Yeah. But once again, like there are some times where, you know, something that should have been said, and those moments you kind of like you lose, right? And you should have said something. That's one thing that I don't really care for, the resolution part, because nothing get resolved. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know, nothing get resolved. But I think when we're talking about this, I've gotten to a point that person may think, since I don't have a comeback, they may look at you as a weak person. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with weakness. No. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to bend to your level, right? And it's kind of one of those things too. Yeah. But once again, something should be said, but I'm getting to a point to respond, at least say something that's need to be addressed or whatnot.
Definitely.
There's the thing that what you're saying, what it's making me think of is us being in control of our pride and humility.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because pride is the part of us that makes it so we have to have the last word or have to win an argument or whatever, or a disagreement. And humility is, okay, you can be right. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay if you think that I'm weak for letting you be right or letting you win the argument. You know what I'm saying? Partially because your opinion of me probably is not, it doesn't trump my own opinion of me for sure, but it also is probably not something that I hold in the highest regard in most cases. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. I love even how your face is looking, because don't you love the feeling when somebody really wants to argue with me? Yeah. And you're like, I'm not really going to entertain this.
It happens to me quite often. Right. And I'm just like, I'm not, I have no desire to argue, and so I won't. Just flat out. I don't care where you go with it, but it's not going to be something where I get bent out of shape. Yeah. And that's not something that I'm grateful for the growth that it's taken to get to that point. You know what I mean?
That's good.
Especially as a man, and even further as a black man, we come up with pride being number one, top tier. Nothing comes above pride. Yeah. And so for a person to be able to, for a man to be able to say I'm able to set my pride aside, number one, for my own health, my own well-being, my own mental well-being. Yeah. And because it's something that, in most cases, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's not something that we're talking life or death in most cases. Yeah. And then I was also thinking about a book that I'm reading where a guy was saying that, and I hope I don't butcher this. He was saying that in order for there to be an argument, in most cases, especially if it's like, I'm not comfortable with what you did to me or what you said to me or whatever, it's me looking for you to take 100% of the blame. It's two people or two parties arguing for victimhood. Yeah, I'm the victim here, and you're gonna you know what I'm saying? You want me in a pot. Yeah. And to me, that's a powerful way of looking at it, because as long as I know I'm not looking to be the victim, I'm good. Yeah. You know what I mean? It saves me from taking a lot of things personally, number one, and then it also allows me to again swallow my pride and remain humble and say, I'm not looking for you to take the blame. You know, if you did something to offend me, I may say something. If you disagree, I'll say, okay, that was my perspective. If you don't see it that way, I'm gonna move on. I don't need you. I don't need to pull your teeth out to get an apology from you, because by the time I do that, then it's no good anyway. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I really like that victimhood thing. It's important to remember. Okay, am I pretending to be the victim here? You know what I mean? If we keep that in our heads, number one, does it matter? Even if I am the victim, does it really matter? You know what I mean? Can I move? Can I go on with my life and still have a happy life and a peaceful life without this person apologizing to me? You know what I mean? That keeps us from that'll keep you from a lot of nonsense. I think.
I like what you said about pride. As men, we have pride, and then it's off-center with the need to be heard and taken seriously as a man. And then you're always having that struggle. And so I find with myself, I have to have like a constant with peace somewhere within myself. It has to be like a constant strand of something that I latch on that's of peace, because, you know, we all get frustrated. You know, you get frustrated like in any situation, and you find yourself like, man, I want to just punch a hole in the wall. And it's like, I don't even know why. You know, and then you have to just touch down with whatever gives you peace, whatever grounds you, even if it's just saying, you know, I'm more mature than that. I'm better than that now. So I can't go back to the ways of the old man. That could be your strand of peace that you hold on to. Like, you know, sometimes you got to meditate like, okay, I'm mature now. I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? And it's almost like you got to do like some kind of mixed martial arts in your head of just Jedi mind trick yourself, thinking like, I'm not going to let this concern me, because because the decisions that we make, man, sometimes it can change the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely,
you know, in an instant. Especially as men, especially when you get bottled up. You know, and you have to find a way, like especially in conversations like this, where you say, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to do better overall with how I deal with conflict, how I deal with dissatisfaction, or times when I don't feel like I'm being heard. How am I going to deal with that? You know, and walk in that. You know what I'm saying? Find a resolution in your mind. It's like, okay, I can't let this stuff bother me. I can't be petty. I can't let this little petty stuff bother me and eat at me. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody looking at me funny. So I mean, I got little things that really grate me about certain people's practices and the way that they do things and how it has to affect me. And I can't walk in that. You know what I'm saying? Because when you do that, you find yourself like clawing at the world. Like, man, anybody that comes up to me, I'm going to swing on them. And as men, we can't do that. We can't afford to do that.
Right.
Because the consequences, especially for men that look like us, are very detrimental to our future. Whatever we do is detrimental. You know, everybody's always looking for us to mess up anyway. So my thing is we have to always, and I love what you said, is just kind of in your mind just say, I'm not going to play the victim here. You know, because black men, we could play the victim. I mean, if we really want to, we got about a million different reasons to say, hey, I'm the victim here. But it doesn't really benefit us. You know what I'm saying?
You know what? What's the martial art where you put the energy back towards the individual?
Tai Chi.
That Tai Chi Kwando? Or just Tai Chi?
There's a couple of them. Tai Chi.
There's a couple of them.
Aikido.
It's what I believe what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong. You know what I mean? It's about directing that energy back to them.
In a sense, yes. It's kind of showing people, because I mean, you know, I've been approached by people that have like racist tendencies, face to face, head on, and it's like one or two ways I'm gonna handle it. I mean, I can remember a situation when my brother Adam and I were at a Blockbuster, and this guy walks past him and shoulder checks him like we weren't even there. I mean, he like literally knocks him out of the way, and of course my brother's like gonna come at him, and the guy, he was ready to do something. I'm like, both of us against you, we could probably handle it. But what I did is I told him, I said, look here, man. I told the guy, I told my brother to calm down because he was hot. You know what I'm saying? So we were just trying to look for a movie.
I know he was.
Yeah. You know, we were in the action section at Blockbusters. Trying to get us But this guy shoulder checks him, and then he going to try and like step to him. And so I'm like, look here, man, let me tell you something. I said, what you're doing is typical. You know what I'm saying? I really don't appreciate it because this is what we have to deal with. And I told him that. And that's all I said. And he was like, you know what, guys? I apologize. And he and my brother shook hands. But I said, this is typical. So in that instant, and that's kind of how my mind works. It's like, And I've told others that, like, this is typical of this is what I'm used to. And they hate hearing that because they don't want to be a part of the masses, even though that they are. And all you have to say to them is, this is what I'm used to. Yeah. And people hate feeling typical. And so when you're in a point of conflict, you say things like, this is what I would expect from you. Mm-hmm. You know, it really, you take that and deflect and it makes them be introspective. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, wow, I'm really being a jerk to this guy. I didn't really deserve that. Right. And that's right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Well, because that's a good point. I'm glad you brought up that scenario, because I was thinking also about that energy, and I was thinking about a vehicle, right? I think one of the parts of a car that does not get the respect that it should are shocks and shock absorbers.
Yes, that's a good one.
If you do not have a shock or a shock absorber, you're gonna feel every impact of that road. Yeah. And when you think about conflict resolution, you have to think about that there is a shock there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And there's a shock and an impact that need to be recognized. Mm-hmm. What you did right there, that's monumental. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely, because once again, people are not wise enough to recognize the situation and diffuse it giant on the spot. Right. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And unfortunately, cuz was ready to go at him, because I know.
Oh, you know my brother. Yeah.
I know. Yeah. But once again, go back to the car. There's certain components that we need to recognize and be like that. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I know, which is a hard thing to do. Have we ever asked the shock absorber, how do you feel today? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know what I mean? How do you know? You don't. It's not even in your mind. How do we address situations where we know going on reality, but we can put all of our thoughts, our spirit, our soul, our energy towards that to diffuse? We have to think about that daily, man. Yeah. We have to. I think it will be an important practice and exercise to start thinking about that more. Yeah. It's awesome, man.
I agree with you. I think that self-reflection and introspection are the shock absorber. Yeah. If I'm constantly checking myself and making sure that I'm not, number one, playing the victim or taking part in an action that I won't be able to quickly recover from, or something that could be tragic, like the story that we heard about your friend. If I'm constantly examining myself, if I'm always in touch with where I am mentally and emotionally and all of that kind of stuff, then it'll be a lot easier for those shock absorbers, like you said, to go off without even having to sit there and be like, okay, so what should I do? You know what I'm saying? If I stay in a constant state of self-examination, then I'm always on par, or not on par. I'm always at the ready. Yep. I'm always at the ready for a situation to come at me like that, and I can diffuse it much more quickly and without a lot of effort.
That's awesome. And it's also thinking about your triggers all the time. Like, what triggers? Like, ask yourself, like, what really sets me off? Like, without even thinking about it. Like, what will make me draw back without thinking about it? Like, for me, I can't stand just blatant disrespect and disregard just for nothing. Yeah. There's people that just feel like, I'm going to just disrespect you. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, that's something that I just find intolerable, because I don't conduct myself in a manner that should receive that. Yeah. And so for me, that's something that I say, okay, I'm going to recognize that that's one of my triggers. It's people that will do you wrong, then get mad at you and treat you like you're the bad guy because you react. And so that's another thing where it's just like, that's a trigger for me that I'm mindful of. People that want to disrespect you, and then when you respond, they're ready to come at you because you're responding. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to play this game with you. It's a mind game to get a reaction, get a rise out of me, and I just won't play into that game. That's huge. I want to hear you say something.
I look at it like a chess match a lot of times, man. And it's just mainly because too, having those kind of challenges in front of me kind of keeps me engaged and distracted, so to speak. Yeah. But even like I was talking to my kids a lot lately too. It's like when somebody has to come at you as an aggressor like that, whether they feel like they got to check you, to insult you, to win an argument or whatever else, I immediately look at that person as somebody that's weak and in need of some help. Or that's some kind of support. Very true. Immediately, because it's like, and I've told my kids, like, when you got somebody that's constantly coming at you, trying to belittle you, that is the most insecure person in the room. Very good. The person that's the loudest, that has to make you feel as small as possible, is because that's how they feel, and they're trying to stop feeling like that. And it's like when you come into a situation like that, whoever's coming at you wrong, trying to be overly aggressive, trying to prove something, trying to show they're tougher or whatever, that you're automatically categorized as the weakest person in the room in my mind. And it's like, so I'm automatically switching into the mindset of, what does this person need and can I help them? Right? Because it's like, you're trying to get me into an argument, and I get, to my detriment, I try to be a difficult person to get into an argument with. Because it's like, I don't have the time. I don't. It's like, I don't need to prove so badly that I'm right that I got to sit up there and argue with somebody. You know what I mean? And again,
pride versus humility.
To my detriment, and a lot of times, even within my own household, it's like, I'll say something one time, and if your response is, oh no, but this and this, and again, not even like in this mindset that I'm always right, but if it's something I've experienced, and I'm telling you from the standpoint I've gone through this, I know how this is going to end up, I'm telling you this is going to be what happens, and somebody wants to argue, okay. You know what I mean? Well, no, I want to talk about it. No, it's nothing to talk about. I told you already what my standpoint is. You think it's something different, you want to go about it a different way, feel free to do that. I don't need to prove to you that I'm right. I don't need to have you silent. I don't need to, feel like I win in the conversation, because it's like there is no win in an argument to me. If once you are engaged in an argument with somebody, you both lose to me, because it's like it's that challenge of, can I keep control over myself? I think one of the most transformational verses for me was, I think it's in Ecclesiastes, talks about that he that has control over himself is better than a man that's conquered a city. And there's another one that talks about like, a fool's heart is at his left and a wise man's heart is at his right. It's just like the verses like that were very transformational for me, because that was the hardest thing I had to struggle with growing up. You know what I mean? Was self-control. So being able to kind of put it into that challenge kind of aspect, and look at it like the person that's trying to come at you and belittle you or speak down to whoever else, because that's where they're trying to make you feel the way they feel. And that's a cry for help to me. When I look at it like that, it's easy for me to not engage with them in that level. You know what I mean?
I love that. And I find that the hardest battles are with the people that you care about the most. So if you're dealing with somebody like at work, or somebody you don't really have nothing for, it's kind of easy to get past. Because it's like, I don't got nothing here. But if it's somebody that I 100% care about how they feel and what they think of me, then I'm going to definitely, my ultimate goal with that, all in that moment, is to resolve. If I've offended you, or if there's a miscommunication or a misunderstanding, we will resolve it right here. And I have no problems with being wrong, because we're all human.
That's brutal. I was just getting ready to say this.
Exactly. I have learned in life, man, in being married and being close to people, that being wrong is the lesson.
Absolutely.
And so it's okay that I'm wrong. I know I'm not stupid. I don't think the person that I care about thinks I'm stupid, but we are all human. And so if you're wrong in that moment, if that person is wrong or whether I'm wrong, let's figure this out and let's talk about it immediately. Because what's going to happen is a spiritual attack. You leave yourself open for a spiritual attack at that point. Misunderstandings go further. Things fester like a cancer to your spirit. And so when you don't resolve things, you don't talk about it. So like for me, say, for example, if my wife and I have a conflict, we have to resolve that right away, because we're in the same household, and the enemy and the principalities really want marriages to really burn. You know what I'm saying? So that's where you get your best practice, is with your spouse, the woman that you care about, because you have to say to yourself, you have to exercise humility, throw your pride in the garbage, and just say, look here, if I've offended you, if I've said, because I mean, we all as fellas, we can say a little bit more than what we need to say. And in that moment, my pride will be like, I didn't mean nothing by that. I didn't mean to say that like that. You taking it wrong. You know what I'm saying? I don't even talk like that. My voice ain't raised right now. You know what I'm saying? And so in that moment, and then you have to reflect on that, and then eat that humble pie, maybe have 2 slices of that humble pie, and say, look here, I've offended you. Let's talk about this. Let's resolve this. I apologize. And apologizing for me is not a problem. If I'm actually wrong,
or if they perceive that I...
Thank you. That's very important right there. Because some people don't own that. Like that, well, you just looking at it wrong. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I didn't say that like that. I didn't mean that like that. You just looking at it that way. But that doesn't remove me from the fact that...
Because feelings are hurt.
Feelings are hurt. Plus, it's certain things I know from me that don't bother me that probably would bother you. And likewise, certain things that you won't even care about. But then I might be like, Mike, I ain't really like the way you said that, man. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even being a punk about it. I'm like, I'm not overly sensitive.
Right.
But it may be something you said a certain way that I just didn't like. And then it may be something I said a certain way. You simply just didn't, it didn't rub you, like a joke or something. That's a prime example.
Sure.
Like a dirty joke or something off. To me, we all laughing. Then you got, somebody over there like, man, I thought he was saved. He cracking them jokes. So it's words are, man, I have learned, man, words and moods and spirits and seasons. If that stuff doesn't line up correctly, you will find yourself in a situation one day that you can't get yourself out of. So you, like you said, it's vital, man, that constant introspection and self-examination of oneself is imperative for them to not end up at that crossroads one day that they can't get out of, especially with somebody that you absolutely love and care about, that you share blood with, that y'all generally get along with. Y'all come up together and you find yourself at a crossroads or a spiritual crossroads or mental imbalance, or y'all both are just having a bad day and y'all collide like two cars. These are the times where you practice, like you said, the introspection, or just really sitting back and just, as you have that downtime, just reflecting on, like, how could I have said that better? Because I've done that a lot. Like, how could I have said that better? Like, even in our discussions here, like, I probably could have said that a little differently. Because, we get kind of relaxed around each other. And they say things that we may not say around other people a certain way.
You get on camera.
On camera,
for sure.
I'm like, is that red light still blinking? Right. Oh, man. It's like, oh, man.
And we call it like, hey, can you delete
I know you uploaded it, but can you take that back down?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I think that comes back to what you were talking about, like just having that ability to come back and say, because I've had to, both to my wife and to my kids, sometimes recant, like, hey, you know what? I know I said such and such. I was wrong. Right? I was mistaken. I got, what I said wrong, whatever the case was, but I have no problem doing that. And it's like, you have to have that mindset of being able to say and asking for that forgiveness sometimes, like, hey, you know what? I know I said this. I stood by it. I said it whatever way I did. I apologize. I was wrong. You know what I mean?
And you know what? There is absolute power in that. That is the real flex. That's the real power. To be able, as a man, to your wife and kids, say, you know what, I was wrong. And still know that you are a leader and you are a man.
Right.
But to do that, that's when you are 100% have arrived as a man, when you can say, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong.
It's funny. I'm a very similar way. I don't mind apologizing. To me, I would rather apologize. Even if I can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was right about something.
Right.
And if I know that my delivery or my tone or the timing, whatever, if I recognize that was incorrect for the person that I delivered whatever I said to or whatever action, I don't mind apologizing because I understand that I'm not apologizing necessarily for the way that I felt. I'm apologizing for the way that it landed with you. If it bugged you, if it bothered you, if it offended you, blah blah blah, whatever it is, I'm fine with apologizing for that. And even more so when I realize or come into the realization that I did something that was actually wrong. What's crazy is that you can get to a point where you are so okay with apologizing, and the rest of the world is so hard and people find it so difficult to apologize that when you apologize quickly, people will think it's fake. I've had that happen countless times where I've been in a conversation with somebody and they'll say something, to the effect of, well, I mean, you was wrong with you. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I apologize. If that's how it came across to you, I am so sorry. I had no intention on saying it that way or making you feel that way, blah, blah, blah. That don't mean nothing. You ain't gonna just apologize right off. And I'm like, whoa.
Right.
And then over time, I started to realize, like, wow, that's a response because of the rest of the world would never apologize. Or, I ain't gonna say the rest of the world because I haven't arrived. I'm not, But I do realize that being able to apologize quickly and swallow my pride in that sense,
that's the key.
is not a common thing. It's not a common, especially among men.
So have that ego need and that pride. Having it in control.
I don't have a desire for at this point in my life because we all go through growth and evolution as people, but. Listen, there was a point in my life where you wouldn't have got an apology out of me over certain things or whatever, and now I'm like. I spent a lot of time making people more mad because I didn't, I wasn't able to apologize and swallow my pride. And now I'm like, soon as somebody says something to me, oh, okay, my bad, I'm sorry, I apologize. I hope to not do that again. But then here's the other thing. There are people that refuse to receive conflict resolution. There are some people that no matter where you go in terms of apologies or trying to correct things and blah, 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 that will find another thing to continue and so that's when, for me, it gets to the point where I don't like dismissing people, quote unquote.
I know what you mean.
But it gets to a point where even if I'm still engaged in the conversation physically, like I'm still on the phone or we're still talking or whatever, mentally, in some instances, I check out.
You remove yourself.
Because I'm like, okay, after a certain point, I'm like, okay, this is what you like to do. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And if I'm not able to dismiss myself physically, then my mind is I'm home playing video games or petting Susie or something. Because I've realized that there are certain times. Well, let me scratch that. It's just a matter of what I'm willing to put effort and energy into. Right. And my energy and effort is towards progress. Right. And if any conversation, no matter what it is, if it's not making progress, then it's dead, and I don't want any part of it. Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the ultimate maturity.
I was just gonna say real quick because I don't know why, but I was watching this thing on like Chinese quotes the other day from like a lot of their philosophers or whatnot. But one of the things that caught my eye on that one was how did they say it? A man that has failed has learned 1,000 things, and a man that succeeded has learned one.
Yeah.
Right. That's so very good. You learn that, okay, this one path worked, but that's all you get out of it. But if you failed, you have analyzed and gone back and looked at all the different ways things could have went better. And you grow more from your failures. And I've told people this at work too, that I've learned a lot more being under pressure and under fire, you know what I mean? Doing something wrong or being in the midst of trying to fix a problem. I've learned a whole lot more than looking at a spec saying this is how it's supposed to work. I go check it, that's how it works. Okay, I'm on to the next thing. You know what I mean?
There's no growth there.
It's no growth, right? It's just echoing, you parrot it back and forth and it's just there, it's already working, it's just you don't learn as much from it. So in that mindset of being always growing, always being a student, always learning, that's key. You look for those failures as an opportunity for you to grow and for you to learn more and make sure you don't repeat those mistakes.
And I think that's important to say. Yeah. That even in a conversation like this where we're talking about the growth that we've experienced, we got to realize that we're not just talking amongst ourselves. We're talking to an audience. Right. And again, this goes back to another episode that we shot before, is relating our own humanity and the fact that we ain't perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Very much so.
And so there are times where, as much as I want to be non-confrontational and avoid conflict and all of this kind of stuff, there are times when I misstep, and as I'm sure the rest of us. And so I don't want it to seem like, for anybody that may be watching, like, oh, well, they just think they always must be right, and anytime they stop arguing, they automatically right. That's not how I feel. I feel that I'm working towards being a more perfect individual. Yes. And that includes being able to swallow my pride and avoid conflict at all costs.
Yes. I want my communication to be productive.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's more so what it is. It's like, again, nobody wins. If I engage in an argument with you, neither one of us are winning. It's like I want our conversation to be productive.
Yes.
If our tempers are flaring up, or we're getting hot-headed and everything else about it, we need to just walk away from it and come back and finish the conversation. It's like that's the thing. It's like it gets to a point where you're not gaining anything but further offending the other person.
Right? Making progress. That's a very, very good point because a lot of arguments are just two or more parties that are getting more and more entrenched in their own beliefs or their own victimhood or whatever it is that brought them to this disagreement or this conflict. They're digging that ditch even deeper on each side of that line, and nobody's coming over to the other side. That's literally all it is, and there's no progress that can be made there unless somebody is willing to say, okay, listen, I'm willing to concede that your perspective is what it is, and that I may have overstepped some boundary or whatever.
I think the fact that we have a discussion like this proves that there's nothing perfect. Right. Because it's just a discussion that needs to be had. And I think I really hope people watch it, man, because I think society is conditioning us to be people of conflict. People on edge, always angry, looking for the next argument, trying to be better or see who's better, who we think is better than us, and then try and top them or look more intellectual than somebody else. All these stupid little things are distractions. And then you find you're not even being yourself.
Right.
And I think we're being conditioned and through many forms of media and other avenues. To just be people that are always kind of off kilter, off center.
We were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah. We live in a society that that does its best to remove peace from our existence.
I think a planet. Yeah. The powers that be count on conflict ruling the lives of everyday people.
Yeah.
And I think we see it from governments and the government controlled media. Even in America, we're supposed to have, a free press. It's not that. There's plenty of evidence out there that it's not. There's plenty of testimonies out there that it's not. Mm-hmm. And the powers that be always thrive on conflict. Yeah. Being present in the people. And I think that it goes back to we were talking about this the other day, biblical times as well. You know what I mean? I think that there's evidence that pushing those few divisions, we as human beings across the whole planet, we all have literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of things in common.
Yes.
And all the conflict in the world comes from about 10 or so differences that the populations have. You know what I mean? Every single conflict comes from color, faith, the country you come from, or economic policies, whatever the case is, different political parties. You can narrow it down to about 10 things or less that are the cause of every conflict, and we ignore the millions of things we have in common as human beings. That's, you know what I mean? And it's just it's ridiculous, man. It's so out of balance. You know what I mean? It's just like it has to be more intent in focusing on and highlighting those things to make us so focused on them, to think that this difference means I can't get along with, I can't be compatible with, I can't agree with this other person that has these, small set of differences, and I'm ignoring everything else that I have in common with that person. It's just it's mind control, man. It's just it's effective. It's pervasive, it's everywhere, and it's just like I think that the powers that be would have it no other way, because we can't focus long enough on what's wrong with our societies, our governments, and the places we live. We're so busy arguing with the person that's right in front of us and next door to us.
Man, that's powerful.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. It's something for us to be aware of.
Yeah, very much so, man. Not allow ourselves to be susceptible to the power of suggestion. Like everything is just because the powers that be just they taint everything, taint the water with suggestions.
Yes, absolutely.
That speaks back to your mention, and I'm glad that you said that, because it speaks back to what you were talking about with the true crime docs and the Law and Order and all of that kind of stuff. That type of stuff keeps the paranoia, machine going. It keeps the idea that everybody's out to get me type thing. It keeps that going. And the more we consume that stuff, the more it locks into our mind. We don't think, I don't know why it takes so much for us to think that the things that we entertain ourselves with are not just entertainment, no matter what it is, good or bad. It's not. Whatever it is, whatever we entertain ourselves with stays with us. Yes. It's in our subconscious always. You know what I mean? We dream about it. We think about it. When we get a phone message or an email or a Facebook notification, all of that's processing in our heads, and we see the world through that filter. You know what I'm saying? And and I think it's important that we consider that when we look at what we figure out what we want to entertain ourselves with.
I think they almost operate as evil spells. Like certain things you watch, certain things you consume, you find yourself saying like, I wish they would, or if that happened to me, this is how I'll react. And then you go out and you start looking, like you said, through that lens of, are you trying to threaten me right now? Yeah. Like, are you really trying? And it's like nobody even.
Yeah. It's like you said. It's just everything you consume. It's movies. It's TV. It's Bob's media, Burgers. It's music.
All right, you gotta chill. You gotta chill on Bob's Burgers.
I don't even watch it. I don't even know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's my show right there.
That was actually one of the thoughts I had last week. Was do we realize the media is a medium?
Yeah, that was
one of the things talking about. And when you really slow down, and you have to slow down, I mean, to a snail pace to really understand that those controls are planted. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it's, I think what we're doing here is a construct of reconciliation thought. Right. You know what I'm saying? Or reconciliating thought. Right. Yeah. Bringing things together so we can recognize and understand that there is a power of darkness that want to keep us from light. You know what I'm saying? And I think that when you think about the press or whatnot, did they have, I was just talking to somebody today about this. Did the press have the best intentions at first, right? Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Okay. That's beautiful. Okay.
I'm listening.
No. What I'm saying, that's beautiful because the whole idea is when you give the press the power, and I'm not talking, this is not general, right? This is just a discussion, and you guys can chime in on this. But the very moment the source of information being shared to you is so dangerous because it creates groupthink. You know what I'm saying? And when you are unable, and what we talk about all the time is the individual, the God-given ability to communicate to the true source, that is more valuable than listening to a man that's spoon-feeding you information to create conflict.
Right.
And I think that what you were talking about earlier, and I think what you're saying earlier, because I do want to go back to what you're saying about being wrong. Yeah. Being able to be wrong is so powerful because what you're doing is you are basing yourself for a moment to understand what is going on here. You know what I'm saying? And let us resolve and reconciliate the matter. You know what I mean? And to go back to the press, when you think about the press, I think that we have to be so careful of where we get our information because you can be so misinformed, and then from there you become a puppet to whatever those powers are.
You have to have a filter. You have to have a filter when you're doing it.
You about to start a whole other episode.
Right. You have a filter up because I think it's one of the easiest things. It's one of the easiest things to do ever is to convince a man that he has an enemy.
There you go.
Ooh, say it again.
It's the easiest thing in the world to do to convince a man he has an enemy.
Oh,
you pick one of those 10 or 12 differences.
Yep.
And you tell that man that this person is against you because of one of those differences. God. And that immediately sets that person up to be on the defensive and violent or vigilant in whatever way they think they need to when they face that person.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to quickly address something that we've gotten as feedback on the channel too, because I know we've had some people mention that they think that our podcast is just for African Americans, and it's not. We are obviously all African American men, so we talk a lot about things that we share, that we go through, but the channel is not just meant for African Americans. We are trying to undo a lot of those narratives that are given about our community, about our people, and the way that we are shown sometimes. And we're trying to show you the other side of the coin that can help undo some of that programming. It's not just what you see on the news every night when you see black men being paraded in front of the cameras, being locked away, taken away in handcuffs for everything. We're trying to show that there's another side of that spectrum and that there is recognition within the community of things we need to work on and do better. And we're trying to talk through those things and set up the right kind of mentality and the right momentum behind some of those things. But it's an inclusive discussion. We're not trying to exclude anybody, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So going back to that point, it's very easy to make somebody think they have an enemy based on one of those differences. And it doesn't take any effort whatsoever. We have to be vigilant when we are finding ourselves angry at a group, angry at some point of difference that another human being may have. You've got to stop and ask yourself, where does this come from? Especially if you have zero interaction with that people group. And we've talked about this. That's where I think that there is danger in that chosen people mindset. I don't agree with it. I know how it appears. I know it's written in paper and ink in certain books we hold dear. I do not agree with it, period. Because I think that there is never anything positive that comes from anybody holding a mindset of being a chosen people. I think that it only leads to superiority complexes, high pride, ego issues that eventually results in some kind of hurt or death. So I think that we have to always stop and question ourselves. If we think we have an enemy, stop and think, why do you think that's an enemy? Is that something that's come from you and from your experiences, or were you handed that, were you fed that information? And if it doesn't come from you and from your own experiences, you have to stop and ask, why am I holding on to this mindset, and to get rid of it? Because I think it's programming, you know what I mean? And it's dangerous. It's so easy to do. And if we don't stop and realize we're being programmed in that way, we're going to fall right in line with it. And like you said, it's that group think, it's the sheeple mentality again. You know what I mean? So
if people stop and pause and really say to themselves that billions of dollars are being spent
for a good reason
to make you think that this man is trying to somehow steal something from you.
That's right.
Take something from you.
That's right.
I mean, marketing from every aspect of anything you can think of, any commercial, any hip hop video, anything you've ever seen, some aspect of it is geared for you to think that I need that, so I got to take it from somebody else, or somebody's trying to take something from me, or somebody thinks that they're better than me, somebody is looking at me funny, the black woman don't love me as a black man. Anything you can think of, money has been put behind it for you to have a conflict in your mind.
That's right.
So that's why you have to step outside of everything.
That's right.
And totally just like take a trip, unplug, don't take any electronics, and ask yourself, why am I always thinking this way? Why am I always feeling this way? Because it's not coming from within.
That's right.
Like, honestly, a lot of the conflicts and the emotional disrupts that you have are not necessarily always coming from within you.
No.
It's environmental.
That's right.
And people have capitalized on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A lot of different groups have capitalized on that. Mm-hmm. And they say, this group over here is pretty easy to manipulate. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do everything. We're going to start a production company called Mindless Entertainment and make reality TV-based shows for them to watch and let them feed themselves that slop.
Yep.
All day and every day. And then what they do is they take it out to their own community and treat each other like that show, like we're writing that show to treat those characters on there.
That's right.
And they spend billions on that stuff, man. And people eat it. And they know people are not reading or not talking to one another in a productive manner to resolve anything.
Yep.
So then people walk away. They'll leave a room like this. Mm-hmm. Like people will get in a nasty debate about something stupid like sports or who's the best quarterback. And then they'll leave the situation, right? And, but I don't even like my man like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I don't know why, but I just don't like him.
Right.
I've actually heard people I'm like, why don't you like the person?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't like him. Mm-hmm. And this is like, okay. So let's think about this for a minute. What exactly is it you don't like the way they look, the way they smell? What sensory response negative are they giving you, and they can't answer it. Right. And so my thing is that's a person that needs to step back, remove themselves from the situation and say, why do I feel like this? Why do I think like this?
Right.
Because, this show is speaking to a lot of different groups. Mm-hmm. It's not just from our perspective. It's from the experiences that have been inflicted upon us.
Right.
From other groups that are also being manipulated. Right. In a tragic way. For sure. And have been for centuries.
For sure.
Constantly manipulated because when you fan the flames of a certain ideology or belief system, that's always going to have conflict. Mm-hmm. And chaos is control. Chaos is money. Mm-hmm. Ultimately.
That's right.
And the evil principalities that exist amongst us are always going to make money off of that.
Right.
And they don't want you to wake up and say, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. They running game on me. I got it now. Because I love my brother. I love my sister. I love the guy at work. I love my neighbor. I love whomever because I am loved. Right.